Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to do a standalone. Now, it is a part of a series that's called the Main Street Merchant series, but each one of those books can also be done as standalones. And so, the author of this series is called Linda Seed, and we're going to do book number 3, which is called Nearly Wild. We meet Rose, and she's out on a date with her boyfriend, Jeremy. And Jeremy is an English professor, and she is getting dumped. So he tells her, they're not working out, all this type of crap. And she's just sitting there like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. And he's like, actually, she said, shitting me. And he was like, that right there, your profanity. And she's like, I used it before, you said you liked it. So then she basically tells him, so you just effed me an hour ago. You let me get an appetizer, not even a whole meal, and then you dumped me. So she took her fried clams and dumped him on his lap. And then she stormed out. And then when she got outside, she realized, oh shoot, I rode in his car. So she had to call her friend Kate. So Kate comes to get her. Um, and she tells Kate everything that happened. And of course, Kate's not surprised because Kate apparently kind of felt like he was not the person for her anyway. Kate takes her home. She lives in Cambria, California. She lives in this like little small house, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. It's old and folksy. It's got character. She loves it. We get a little bit of a backdrop into the relationship that she had with Jeremy. So she works in a wine shop, and that's where she met Jeremy, and he was on a date with a woman the first time she saw him. And he was checking out her ass most of the time, which, kind of says a lot anyway. So the next day, he comes back, and she was just kind of like, of course, you were just in here with a woman. And he's like, oh no, we were just, dating a couple times. It was nothing serious. But then, of course, she comes to find out he had been dating a girl for months. But she still stayed with him, right? So he's showing patterns of he ain't shit, but she's not necessarily looking at that, right? So at first, it was kind of small, the little things he wanted her to do, right? At first, it was like he liked her eccentric look because she has, piercings above her eye, in her eyebrow, in her nose, in different places. So she's very exotic looking to him. And at first, he claimed he liked it. But then, slowly but surely, he started kind of asking her, oh, well, for this faculty meeting, why don't you just take out the earrings on your face, your piercings on your face? And then different things. Well, why don't you wear that? He's kind of trying to turn you into what he would like you to be. And so she noticed these things, but she really liked him. And so she stayed in it. But she found herself trying to kind of conform to what this person wanted her to be, which you already know is never going to work because somebody has to try and mold you into something. Like, you're just not the person. You know what I mean? Like, this shit, there'll always be something that they'll find wrong with you. You know what I mean? Even if you do everything they want, still gonna find something wrong. But unfortunately, she stayed in it too long, and she got her ass hurt. She has decided that she is done with relationships. She might do a couple hookups, but relationships are done for her. So we then meet Will Bachman. Yay, because it's, back and forth POV. I love it. He is in the middle of trying to finish his dissertation on the snowy plover bird species. He wants to be a professor. So he's trying to get his PhD. So he's staying in the guest house of his friend, whose name is Chris. They met in college. Chris is now mega rich because he created a dating app, which is doing extremely well. So the deal they have is that, Will is going to keep up the property, And if there is, some client he needs to send out there for entertainment, he'll get the house ready. And so he's able to live there, rent free in the guest house and work on his dissertation. So it's a perfect little situation. So he gets a text message from Chris saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in town in a couple days and I'm bringing a woman." So then we go back to Rose. She's at work. This new couple comes in. They're wine testing. They say they're celebrating their 1 month anniversary. No, not of marriage. They're just dating. The guy's excited to even say this, right? And this, of course, triggers her. She has a whole freaking rant and scares the poor couple, saying, "Hey, it starts off this way and then they dump you," and all this type of stuff. And so her boss comes over to her. I can't think of her name right now, but she comes over to her and she's like, "Hey, you need to take some time off." And she's like, "No, no, I'm okay." And she's like, "No, you're not fine, you know?" And she also told her, "I knew he wasn't any good for you, you know. Hell, he ordered chocolate wine." Which I've had, and I actually thought it was pretty good. So hey, but I guess to a wheel or a wine person, you know, it's probably not as great. But I thought it was good. So I digress. So she does tell her, because she tells her the whole spiel about "I'm done with men," and she does say to her, "I know you feel like that, but eventually you are gonna meet someone." Rose goes to the local coffee shop. It's called Jitters. It's also where I think Kate works. And so Jen, who's her friend that's getting married, she's looking at wedding cakes and stuff. And of course, you know, Rose isn't really in the mood to do this, but she's trying to be a good friend. And this is like a catch 22, right? If she would have not shown up, then it would have been you should show up for your friends no matter what. But then your friend's going through a breakup. Do you really want to put it in your friend's face, the happiness that you found? Even though I know your friends are supposed to be happy for you no matter what. I get that. But realistically, I don't know. I just kind of feel like if I know you're going through something like that and I know it's been kind of rough on you, I don't know if I would want to force my friend to be involved in that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if I would need to give him a couple of weeks. I don't know. But I get both sides to it. You know? Jen feeling like, "I know this is hard for you, but I really need help." I don't know. But then again, I'm kind of like, you knew you weren't going to have a fucking future with that guy anyway. So are you really mad about him or are you mad that you're now alone? So I don't know. I'm a little back and forth on that. Me personally, I would still be there for my friend because it does make me happy to see my friends happy. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that would help me. Like, to know, okay, my friend has really found someone that truly makes her happy. I can put aside the fact that I haven't found that, right? So I could do it, but I'm just saying I don't know if we should expect everyone to be able to do that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section because I'm just not sure. We switch back over to Will's POV. He gets a text message from an ex girlfriend named Melinda, and she lets him know that she is now dating Chris, but she never told him that him and Will, not him and Will, her and Will used to be together and broke up a few months ago. So she apparently states when she met Chris, she didn't know that they were friends, but then by the time she found out, it was too late for her to say anything. So she's asking him, just don't say anything. And then he, of course, agrees. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then he gets a text message from Chris about a certain wine that she likes, and he finds out Divine, that's the name of the store, the wine store where Rose works, they have it. So he goes, and they know each other because they have the same group of friends, but they don't know each other. You know what I mean? But they know of each other. She goes and gets the wine, and then he can kind of tell by her face something's going on. Okay. And so he winds up kind of telling her about his situation with Melinda. And she pretty much lets him know, like, if this goes wrong, you're the one that's going to be out of a job and a place to stay. And then he realizes, like, oh shit, this is not going to be good, and this just got a lot more complicated. So then Ro gets a phone call from her mother, Pamela, and she has her mother listed in her phone as She Dragon. Oh, that's so awful. So her mother's saying to her, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, the Delaney wedding. So Ryan Delaney, who is the one marrying her friend Jen, is a part of this Delaney family, and they're like one of the wealthiest families on the West Coast. And her mother wants to be invited because it's like the who's who going to this wedding, even though apparently it's supposed to be a small event. So she still feels like their money, she needs to be there because she's money, but she's on the East Coast. And so she was just like, I can't invite you. Like, it's not my wedding. So then she's like, oh, don't worry. I'll call Sandra Delaney. So she calls her. And Sandra Delaney, of course, is the mother in law. So then Rose calls Jan and is like, hey, she's about to hyperventilate at this point. Do not invite my mom to the wedding because she's going to call. So before Jen could call Sandra, guess what? Girl had already found the number and called Sandra and got invited. She told the woman that, um, Rose really wanted her to go, but she didn't want to impose, and the damn woman invited her. So apparently she's going to be visiting in June, and it coincides with the wedding and all this type of stuff. It worked. I'm like, damn. So then what's his name? Will gets a text message from Chris, and he invites him to dinner with him and Melinda. And so at first he tells him, oh, I got a date, I can't go. Well, Chris is like, well, bring her along. The more the merrier. So then he says, no, we already have reservations at Neptune, and which is a restaurant. And he's like, well, we'll just all meet you there. And he's like, oh shoot, like what am I gonna do? So he's outside helping with the house Ryan's building for Jim. And it's on the family property, but it's gonna be like 100 yards away, so they have their own space. And so Rose comes up, and they're talking about bridesmaid dresses, her, and the girls, and then he talks to her about the situation with Melinda, and she's kind of like, "Well, why did you lie?" He's like, "I don't know. I thought it was gonna get me out of it." So Lacey and Rose kind of have this whole conversation about whether Rose should do a fake date or not. And they come to the conclusion, you know what? Yeah, she could do it for him, right? And he's just like, okay. So he goes to pick her up on date night. She's dressed in a black dress or boots. She's a whole vibe. And because she, marches to her own horn. But he's liking that. So they go to the restaurant. And right off the bat, Melinda is looking at Rose like, yuck. Chris was nice to her, but Melinda was just trying to find a way to get under Rose's skin. And she even made a comment like, "Oh, I can see why you kind of like her. She's kind of exotic, you know." It was just crazy. And so he had pulled her aside, Will had, and was like, Rose, I'm so sorry. You didn't come here to be, insulted. And she's like, listen, I come from Connecticut with parents that, that were all about high society, like, trust me, I'm good with this. Don't worry about it. So they go back to the table. Melinda's still being bitchy as hell to her. And Rose is having fun, you know, Bush, going back and forth with her. She likes the toe for toe. And so then, right before they were about to leave, she leans over and she kisses Will. And it's this hot, passionate kiss. And Melinda, whole face about fell off. Now, to me, I don't see how the Chris guy didn't see this. Because that right there tells me, well, why is this affecting you? You don't even know this person. Why is this affecting you? You ain't supposed to know him. You ain't supposed to know her. How is this affecting you? So that lets you know right there he's not too observant. Or that he just doesn't care. Could be that too. So on the way back to Rose's place, they have a real conversation, just kind of about the insecurities. Um, well, we'll say Will did, about his insecurities when it came to kind of Chris and with himself. And it's like he knows he's going to be a doctor. He just has to finish his dissertation because he feels like he should be a professor, but he's not really excited about it. And then it's like he feels less than when it comes to Chris. Like they graduate at the same time, um, but he has far less. And so, but this is a testament to it. It's easier said than done sometimes, but not gauging your success by other people's. It's nice to say, okay, that's good. I like that. That's cool. I'm going to try and do that for myself. But don't necessarily put yourself on that same timeline as somebody else. And if you don't do it within that time frame, then you have now failed at life. Like, that's just not, that's just not how it works. So she asked him to come inside, and he winds up kissing her, and it of course left her just standing there, and she was kind of like, what was that? And he was like, well, I was just trying to recreate the kiss from the restaurant. He's like, I'm forever a scientist. But it had an effect on both of them. So Will is doing his research on the snowy plovers, and he of course is thinking about Rose. And even though she said, she's done with men, he still wants to get to know her. So Rose is telling her girlfriend about what happened and with the kisses. And they were like, the kisses melted your face? Like, this sounds like a real date. She then gets a phone call when she goes back to work. She gets a phone call from her mother. Her mother called the actual store. And she starts asking her, like, how are you going to wear your hair and all this type of stuff. And so she tells her mom she's probably going to do like pink hair, because I think now her hair is like blue and something. And her mother is just like, are you trying to embarrass me? And I'm just kind of like, first of all, you forced your invite. This is her fucking friend's wedding. Her friends know who and what she is. They know she has an eclectic style. If her friend wanted her to dim it down a little bit or do something, they would tell her. But her friends aren't asking her to do that. So all this high society shit, like, no, you don't get to try and come in and impose that on her, because this is not about you. So her mother is a bitch. I don't like her. She even says to her, Jen knows me. Jen loves me for me. And it's okay with her, and it should be okay with you. You know, basically like try loving me for who I am. But she, sure, that pissed me off when I read that, because I was like, what a piss poor fucking parent. Like, you're trying to make the girl feel bad, and it's not even if it was her wedding, don't fucking do that to her. You know, clearly she's moved way across to the other side of the fucking country to be away from you. Just saying. Try and do better. Pamela. And she hung up on her mother after that. So then we go back to Will. He of course really likes Rose, wants to get to know her. Um, Chris comes to see him in the guest house and was kind of like, "What was that about last night?" And Will was like, "What?" And he's like, "The whole Rose Melinda thing." And Will was like, "Did you ask Melinda?" And he's like, "Yeah, but she just said she thinks Rose was trying to get underneath her skin." And Will was like, "Well, that's not what it looked like." And Chris was like, "I didn't think so either." So then Will changes the subject, and we find out Chris has been invited to this wedding as well because Ryan, who's the groom, and Jen, the bride, they had a really great time at the Cooper House. That's the name of the estate, by the way, Cooper House. So they invited him because it was like this really special date. So they invited him to the event as well. So apparently he's going to be bringing Melinda. So Will goes to see Rose, and he says he is going to pick up some wine that she had recommended the night before at dinner, but it's also because he wanted to see her again. So he volunteered to go and get it. So he sees a brochure where she's looking at school for like wine and, is it viticulture? I don't know if I said that right. Um, but she, of course, is like, yeah, she wants to go, but she doesn't really want to get loans, because then that involves debt. And she can ask her mother, but then that money's going to come with strings, and she doesn't want to pay that price. And so he kind of tells her, you know, there's other ways to to possibly pay for it. So then we get a little backdrop about Rose. So she's from Darien, Connecticut. So she was super rich, all white, plays, and her mother had everything planned out for her. She was supposed to go to Yale. In high school, she'd been part of the debate club, all kind of different social clubs she was in. On her 16th birthday, her parents gave her a Mercedes. When she graduated, she got accepted to Yale, and that's when she ran away. She sold the Benz probably halfway through the trip for like 10 grand. And she took a bus the rest of the way. When she was in Lincoln, Nebraska, she got a tattoo of a rose on her shoulder, I think. And he told her, listen, if you did all that, you can find a way to pay it. He's like, listen, I did scholarships, I did work study. He's like, and then it was only a small amount of loans you can take out. He's like, there's a way to make it work. And if you did that and have come here and made a life for yourself, he's like, you can definitely do it. And I like that. That's nice and refreshing, and like that belief in her. And she has that from her friends, but it's nice someone that doesn't know you as well to be able to hear that. That's still nice to hear from anybody. Will comes back to the house. Melinda opens the door. Apparently, Chris is taking a tennis lesson. So Melinda's like, well, can you bring it down to the cellar? So he takes it down there. First thing she starts saying is, are you serious about her? Like, how can you go from somebody like me to her? Like, there's no way you're serious about her. Just all this type of crap. And so then she grabs him and tries to kiss him, and he pushes her away, and he's like, listen, you're with Chris, I'm with Rose, like, pretty much don't do that shit no more. And he left her. So then of course he wants to talk to someone about it, and he wants to talk to Rose. So he asks her if she can like take a break for lunch, and she does. And they go have lunch. He tells her the situation, and Rose gave him a few scenarios. It also made her some jealousy go through her, the idea of this woman kissing him. And so she says, listen, it's either she really does feel something for you and she wants you back and she's using Chris, or it's a matter of she just doesn't like the fact that you've moved on. Like, she maybe felt like she had the upper hand because she had this, rich guy, and you were supposed to be the loser, right? And she asked him, like, did you dump her? He was like, well, I mean, we weren't working out. He dumped her. And so that's a hard pill sometimes for people to swallow. Pride can get to you. So he's just like, I didn't even think. And she gave another scenario. I can't remember what it was. But he's just like, and she's like, and there's probably more that I haven't even thought of. And he's like, oh shit, I didn't even know, like, those, it could be all of those, you know? She does propose that they can have another fake date at the wedding. So that way, it's not a complicated thing of like, well, why did you guys break up? So she is excited about her little idea. And of course, he's cool with it. Um, so Will's going to come by. He's gonna help with the wine testing menu. This is probably a few days later, and their friends know what's going on, so they're kind of trying to push them together. And she realizes it, and so does he. But he's not gonna turn down an opportunity to be around her. He also gives her a folder of scholarships that could possibly help, with her viticultural degree. And she was extremely thankful for that. And she kissed him, and she has a conversation with her girls, and they're kind of just like, you kissed him again? She's like, if this is supposed to be fake, why do y'all keep kissing? Like, why are y'all exchanging bodily fluids? And Jen told her, you being stupid. He likes you. He's a good guy. Like, why not dating? Why keep doing this stupid fake dating shit, And she kind of told her, she um what happened? Jackson had told her that not yeah, no. Jackson and I think Kate go together. So Kate was saying that Jackson had told her that, Will had told him he really wants to date you, like, for real. And she's like, no, I can't do that. That's going to mess stuff up. And her friends are like, he's not Jeremy. Jeremy was trash. So, like, come on. She's like, but that's my problem. Jeremy was trash and he crushed me. So you can only imagine what's going to happen if Will ever decides to throw me away. And that was so sad that that's her process. But dang. So Rose goes storming over to where Will is on the beach. She's pissed off at him, and she's like, I told you I don't date. Why did you tell Jackson you want to date me? He could barely get out the answer because she was just so pissed off. They wound up changing the subject, and he let her know his whole fear, which is kind of like, once he's done with his dissertation, everything's going to change, and he's not necessarily ready for that to happen. Plus, he's kind of scared, like, what if he can't get a job at a college and all this kind of stuff. But she told him, like, we're not doing any more kissing. So then Rose's mom, Pamela, pops up. This is a month before the wedding. And of course, she didn't tell the girl, so Rose opens the door. She's completely blindsided. She's like, what are you doing here? And her mom's like, wow, nice to see you too. And she's just like, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, because you would have tried to find a way to get out of it and be busy the whole time. So the girl, what's her name? Rose was off that day, but the girl tried to go into work, but it didn't work out. So she winds up taking her mom to the rented house, but her mom didn't get the house that she initially rented because she had rented like a 5-bedroom, nice beach house. Well, the company had double booked, so all they had was this 1 bedroom, and of course it's below her standards. She's pissed. She's on the phone with the realtor. They're like, we're so sorry, we'll refund you, all this type of stuff. So she's like, fine, I'll just stay. But she, of course, is pissed off. And Rose was even like, maybe you could just go and come back when it's time for the wedding. Like, she's trying to get that lady out of there. I can't really blame her. So then Later, her mother starts bothering her about her love life. A couple days later, she lies. She says she's dating somebody for a few weeks, talking about Will Bachman. And her mother, of course, wants to eventually meet him. And she's like, fine. So she goes to talk to him. When she gets off, tell him her plan. He, of course, is game because, hell, he really wants to be with her. So Pamela is going to have a little get together at her rental place, and she invited Rose's friends. So Will is supposed to be there, but he hasn't shown up just yet. He's running late because his car broke down. So she calls him and he tells her that, and she's like, listen, if you didn't want to come, you just could just say that. And he's like, no, 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 no. I am really on the side of the road. And he told her where he was. And she's like, okay, no problem. I'll come and get you. On their way back, um, they have this little conversation about her mother, and he pretty much lets her know, listen, if your mother can't accept you for who you are, it just means that she has some baggage that she hasn't dealt with yet, and she's kind of putting it off on you. um if she can ever accept whatever baggage she has, then there is hope for you all. And Rose is just kind of like, I'm not holding my breath. So then he tells her how perfect she is the way that she is, and he tells her, I know this is fake, but on my end it's real. And he tells her, I know you're not ready right now, and that's fine. But when you're ready, I want to be the person that you're ready to play, to do this with. And she, of course, loves it, and she kisses him, and she's even more, you know, what's the word? Stunned by the feelings that he's evoking from her. Now, me personally, I don't think this is a good idea. I think if a person tells you something like that, like they don't want a relationship, they don't, I think that's, to me, that's probably not your person, and you need to leave them alone. I don't think you should have the thought process of, oh, I'll hang around and maybe that person will look at me differently. No. If they can fix their mouth to say that to you, they don't want you, and that's never going to change. I get that he's all puppy love about the girl, but I'm sorry. Those are just red flags. So at first, Pamela would not eat the steak that Jackson had cooked on the grill. He, of course, is insulted because he's a whole ass fucking chef. He's the chef at Neptune, by the way. And he's really fucking good. And so Rose goes and tells her mom that he used to cook for the Obamas. Then she tasted it and then was like, oh my gosh, it was so good. Then she tore it up. So then Pamela wants to have a conversation with Will, and he tells her about his background. His father was a plumber, owned the company for over 20 years. His mother was an English teacher. And she just kind of was like, oh, that's amazing that you've accomplished everything you have with the background that you come from. So she's a fucking elitist. Fucking bitch. He kind of went off on her in a nice, nasty way, which I did love. He basically just kind of said to her, we're finished. She looked at him like, what do you mean? And he says, I don't need your approval. I'm dating Rose. I only need her approval. And Rose is one of the kindest, sweetest people I've ever known. But she can't even seem to get your approval, which is sad. But the only approval I need is hers. And he was like, enjoy your evening. And he went back to the party. And I was just like, yes, I love it. So then Rose was sitting there. No, I'm sorry. Pamela was sitting there with her mouth hung open because she could not believe that. She's a widower. Rose is her only kid. So my thing is, this is all you have. Why the fuck would you treat that one person that way? I don't know. I just don't like the caliber of human being she's showing to be. It's just trash. So the party moves on. Kate and Rose have a conversation in the kitchen, and Rose is now saying how maybe they can have friendly sex, and she's like, if he catches feelings, so what? Because men do it to women all the time. And Kate's like, but that's wrong when it's done that way too. Like, you don't feel that way about him, then you shouldn't string people along. That's fucked up. And this is what happens. Hurt people hurt people. Now, how fucked up that could have been, that her projecting her bullshit onto Will, what if they had to turn him into this cold individual? Like, let's say she wants to start fucking with him and she don't feel him, but she's playing with him. Like, that could have really fucked with him. And now he was a good guy, but then it feels like, fuck, what's the purpose of being a good guy, right? So, you that's just one of those things I'm very much like harsh with. Just don't play with people. You know you don't want do not play with people's feelings, you know? I just think that's an awful thing to do. Like, I just think it's awful. And to me, her doing that because a guy that you knew was a piece of shit, you stayed in that relationship longer than you should have fucking been in it. And you allowed yourself to get hurt. So why is it now that every man's a piece of shit? You was with someone that was trying to change you, right? And those are things that you didn't want from a man, but yet you stayed there and did it. And because he left you, now all men are awful? No. Bitch, you chose the wrong fucking person. It's just as simple as that. But because she's stuck, she's almost trying to fuck over a good person. And that's just, I don't know. That see, at this moment, I don't fucking like her. Finna throw her in the category with a mammy. She takes this idea to him, and he, of course, looks hurt. And he tells her no. And she's like, what? You're telling me no? And he says, if we hook up, it's going to be because it's something you want to do, not because you just want to do casual. He's like, I've done casual before, but that's not something I want to do with you. And so then she offered to take him home, and he was like, nah, I'll catch a ride with Jen and Ryan. And so she's just standing there looking stupid. And I was like, good. So the next day she goes to Jitters, and her friend tells her the same thing. Like, he doesn't just want to sleep with you. He really wants something meaningful with you. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are you being like this? And then we find out Will, he's been getting text messages from Melinda. She keeps sending him stuff like, you miss me. And when he doesn't respond, she gets angrier and angrier. And it's becoming a whole fucking mess. So he's decided he's going to try and find out what happened in Rose's last relationship to see, like, kind of why she's this way, right? So he's either going to ask her friends or he's going to get Jackson to find out, but some kind of way he's going to try and find out. So Will has a conversation with Kate, and she tells him all the deets about the last relationship. And he, of course, is like, okay. He's like, I got to figure out a way to see her I'm not like him, and kind of, show her that I fully see her and appreciate who she is, and that I wouldn't even think twice about trying to change her. It even pissed him off at the thought that somebody tried to change who she was. So then Rose's mother is complaining about everything at the party except for Jackson's steak. This is on the phone with Rose, and she wanted Rose to come over to her place when she got off work. And she's like, I know you're trying not to spend time with me and all this type of stuff, but it's like, bitch, if you just gonna sit here and bitch about the people I'm cool with, why the fuck would I want to be around you? I'm just saying. So she tells her, I can't, I have plans, me and Will got a date, right? So then she calls Will, and she sets up the date. He, of course, is down to do it. And they have a great little date. They walk on the beach, have dessert or whatever. And she finds out that when his brother was 20 years old, he died in a motorcycle accident. And Will was like 16 at the time. And he was kind of trying to explain to her about when it comes to grief, how there is no time limit, right? Rose's father died of a heart attack 5 years ago. She kind of felt like her mother would be in a better spot because, the person who was trying to uphold a certain standard was now gone, more so. But he was just trying to get her to understand, maybe loosen up a little bit when it comes to that with her, because clearly she's trying to be around you. She's just clearly doing a piss poor job of being around her. So they have this great time. And while they're eating dessert, she was talking about how like hard it been, with helping Jen plan the wedding. And he was just like, don't worry, when we get married, we'll just go to Vegas and have Elvis marry us. And she was just like, what? He's like, don't worry, you're not ready right now. Just when you're ready. She didn't say much after that, but when they got back to his truck, which he was borrowing, by the way, because his car was broke down, um, she starts kissing him, and they have this hardcore makeout session, and she's like, take me to your place. So he takes her back to his place. They start kissing again, and then he starts eating her pussy. She sucks on his dick, puts the condom on. They have this great, nice, hard fuck session. Afterwards, we find out condom broke. He says to her, well, you're on the pill, so it's okay. And she's like, yeah. Well, the truth is, her ass is not on the pill, because when she broke up with Jeremy, one of her whole big spiels about being done with men meant she needed to do a big gesture. And that gesture was throwing away her fucking birth control. So fucking dumb. Okay. So then she's supposed to go get a plan B, but stuff kept happening to where she couldn't go to the store. So you already know where this is going to go. So her and Will, of course, spend a lot of time together. Of course, she's trying to avoid her mother, but she loves spending time with this man as well. So he tells her one day, he's like, well, let's have your mother over, to my guest house for dinner. And she's like, huh? He's like, might as well have her over. But in his brain, he's thinking, if I'm going to be a permanent fixture in her life, I probably need to have a better rapport with her mother. So Pamela agrees. She comes over. So she was being kind of pleasant at first. And then he had spilled the beans about her wanting to go to college. And her mother was just like, um, if you wanted to go, like, you could have asked me for the money. And she's like, no. She's like, there's options, financial aid and stuff like that. And her mother had this look of disdain on her face, like, that's for working class. And he looks at her, and Will's like, I'm working class, you know? And she's like, but she's doing this. She's making this her choice. And she's like, no, I am working class, Mom. I don't have money. You have money. And she, again, she's like, I didn't accept it. I didn't want to go to Yale. I ran away. And Will was like, clearly she didn't want to go. So pretty much it's just kind of, how do I say this? I don't know. I don't like the mom. Because it's just like she keeps trying. It's like, look at the facts. The facts are she got accepted into this prestigious university and she ran the fuck away. And this has been 10 years. Okay? So she clearly didn't want the life you were trying to give her. Why do you keep trying to force it down her throat? That's the part I don't fucking get. I just don't. But her mother then she kind of switches her tone a little bit and it's like, I can't see why you like this place. It is very charming. And Rose is looking like, what the fuck? Because her mother doesn't talk like that. So after dinner, she takes her mom home. And her mom, of course, is like, you should have told me you were considering going to college. It's not like the money would have been an issue. And she tells her again, it would have come with strings. And it would have been the color of my hair, then the piercings, and then you want me to change my boyfriend, and then you want me to move back to Connecticut. And her mom couldn't say anything because that's exactly what she was going to try and make her do. So she lied to her mom and said she had to go do something for Kate, but her mom knew she was going back over to Will's. So she just says, tell Will thank you for dinner. So a couple of weeks have passed. She's talking to her girls and tells them she's late. So Kate is actually the one who was just kind of like, you need to take a test. And she was afraid to go and buy it because it's a small town. So she bribed a tourist person to go buy it for her, and they did. And of course, it comes back. She's fucking pregnant. So, she's like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? But here's my thing. I feel like you wanted this, you know? Like, let me tell you something. If you don't, you're gonna go find that Plan B pill. If you don't really want this. But it's like, I don't know. I just feel like she wanted that. It's almost like she needed something to possibly push her towards him more so. I don't know. That's just what it feels like with her. So then she says she will eventually tell him, but she doesn't really know what she wants to do. And like she wants him to choose her for her. But I'm like, bitch, he wanted you for you. Like, and I didn't understand why Kate didn't tell her as well about the conversation that she had with him. Like, the dude is for real about you. So this is where I'm like, you just, and again, I'm an overthinker, but I'm just like, come on. He's not giving you mixed signals. He's not. He's letting you know he wants you. So like, why is this so hard? She got on my fucking nerves with this. She really did. So then Jackson came in, saw everybody crying. He wanted to help. So he's like, you want me to get you some wine? And everyone went, no. So then he's like, something's up. But he left. So he left and he went to meet up with Will. And he tells Will, okay, I probably shouldn't tell you, but I'm just tell you what I'm suspecting is going on. I think she's pregnant. And Will is like, okay, you know. He already loves the girl. Jackson knows it. Everyone knows it. And Jackson's like, well, hey, that's at least a good start. And he, of course, was like, whatever she wants to do, I will support her in that. So he's decided he is going to wait for her because they went through a bunch of scenarios, but he's decided he's going to wait for her to tell him what she wants to do. So she's helping Jen with different duties, Rose is, and one of them is to call the people who haven't RSVP'd. So she goes to the shop to do that. She gets some messages from Will. She's trying to um, avoid him. So she says, I'm busy. I got wedding stuff to do. And he says, well, what about tomorrow night? She's like, I got customers coming in. I'll talk to you later. So when she gets off, he's outside with a bag from Neptune's. He's like, well, you got to eat. And of course, she's hungry. So they go and they have a little picnic at the beach. And he tells her about the text messages that he's been getting from Melinda. And girl is pissed. She was sending stuff like, you can't ignore me forever. And, I'm going to tell Chris, that you kiss me and you'll lose your job and all this type of stuff. Just crazy. I mean, and I don't believe it's for an affection. It's not an affection she has for Will. I think it really is the fact. I don't think she's that crazy about Chris. He may look good to have, this rich man, but I think she sees him looking at Rose with this, you know, probably something she never saw from him, and it's pissing her off because she feels like she's superior. I really think that's all it is. People are stupid. They really are dumb when it comes to stuff like that. You just ain't it. Ain't nothing to be mad about. You just ain't it. You know? So the next morning, she's on the phone with Kate, and she's telling her about her night with Will. And Kate already knew because Jackson was the one that cooked the food. And so she was saying how she's going to back off of Will. And Kate told her, "You just being stupid. You are not seeing the bigger picture." Um, and this, of course, made her feelings hurt. But I wouldn't have gave a fuck. Like, if you're being dumb, you're being fucking dumb. It's like people, you want a good dude, but then you're not able to see the good person that's like standing there dead in your fucking face. You know what I mean? Like, I never understood individuals like that. That's like crazy. But she's on her crazy trip or whatever. We'll get a text message from Chris saying, "Hey, um, Melinda's gonna come down like a week before the wedding because she needs a getaway. And I'm like, oh fuck, this finna be some shit. He's been doing really good work with his dissertation, and it's kind of like I think it helped finding out about her being pregnant because it's like, okay, now I know I need to walk into my future, right? Like, I need to get a job. I need to start working towards the rest of my life. And it's giving him the boost that he's needed to finish this damn dissertation. So he's decided, fine, she's coming sooner. I'm just going to keep myself busy, stay away from the house as much as I can. You know, if all that fails, then I'll tell Chris about the text messages. Pamela invites Rose over for breakfast. She cooked bacon, pancakes, eggs. Rose is shocked because her mom doesn't cook, so she's just kind of like, what is going on? Girl walked outside, was like, am I at the right address? And her mom's like, just stop, you know. So her mom seems happy. And she ate so much of the food, she got sick, threw up. And her mom's like, if you had a stomach bug, you shouldn't have came. And she's like, I don't have a stomach bug. So then Will is working on his dissertation. He gets a buzz at the gate. It's Pamela. And so she comes to have a conversation with him. And she says, you know, she knows Rose is pregnant. And she realizes when she's saying this that, oh, she hasn't told you yet, you know? And he's like, well, I take it how you're saying it. She didn't really tell you either. And she's like, nah, I kind of figure it out. But he's learned her, and he knows if I say something to her, it's just gonna erect those walls around her. And the mom knows that too, and that's why the mom won't say anything as well. He did tell the mother, listen, I want to be with her. You know, whatever she needs, I'm going to be that. He's like, you know, I'm getting my dissertation done so I can start working in my field, get a stable income. He's like, you know, I'll definitely be a partner for her with the baby when she's ready to marry me. I'll do it in a heartbeat. And the mom was shocked because she wasn't expecting that type of a response. She clearly thought he was going to say something different, but he's all in, you know, and he's been all in from the beginning. So Jen has a freak out because it's a few days before the wedding, and they had to calm her down. Rose is freaking out because she's pregnant. She's gained weight because she's been eating a lot, and she's just, I don't know. She's a lot. So then Melinda gets there a couple days later. She doesn't bother him at first, but then she starts sending stupid text messages like, "Where's the remote? Could you come and help me?" And then he'd be like, "I'm off of the property." And then she'll be like, what about the pool? The pool's not warm enough. Could you come back and take care of that? So then he tells her, call Chris. He'll tell you how to do it. I'm off the property. So then he's working, and then he gets a message from Chris saying, Melinda saying that you're not helping her with stuff, like what's going on. He texts back, I told her I was off the property, so I couldn't do those things right now. He's like, oh, okay, no problem. You know, she's just being impatient. No problem. So then he has a conversation with Lacey about everything going on with Melinda and trying to get an idea how to deal with it. And Lacey says, well, pretty much stick somebody else on her ass. So he has a friend named Daniel who's an artist, and he's single. So he's like, sick him on her. You know, she'll probably, some attention from somebody else will probably pull her away from you. So after Rose got off work, Will was outside waiting for her to tell her about the situation. And so when he went in, because he was going to cook for her, let me say that. He was going to cook for her. So he went back to the guest house. They're in the middle of cooking dinner. He's telling her about the plan. And she's like, I mean, it might work because Daniel is hot. He, of course, finds himself getting a little jealous. She's like, but I wouldn't choose him. Well, because first I'm done with dating, but also because he wouldn't be the one that I would go after. Then they kiss. They're about to start fucking. Boom, 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 boom. Knock on the door. It's Melinda. And he's like, what do you want? She pushes her way in. And she's like, I need your help. She was like, something in the observatory broke. It needs to be fixed. There's a meteor shower tonight. I need you to come and do it. She's like, it's your job. If you're not going to do your job, then that's going to be a problem. And she leaves. So then Rose gets mad because he's going to leave. And she's like, you know, it's just a trap to try and kiss you again. He's like, it doesn't matter what she tries to do. I don't want her, you know? And she knows in her head, like, this sounds crazy because you're the one that keeps saying we're not together. But then you're getting pissed about the possibility of me hooking up with my ex. And it's just, if she would stop being so fucking stubborn and just be honest, it would be no issue. But she was pissed off and she decided when he comes back, she'll be gone. So Rose left because she's pissed. She goes to Neptune. She goes to Neptune for dinner. Jackson comes out to talk to her, and she tells Jackson what happened. And he's just like, okay, but he's been telling you all along. Wait a minute, let me back up. He says you've been telling him all along that you two aren't together. So why are you sitting over here tripping about the fact that he could be fucking his ex right now? And she's just like, well, it's more complicated. He said, no, it's not. You're in love with the man. He's in love with you. You both love each other. It's not hard. This is simple. You're making this difficult, because you letting all this shit in your head spin around. And then she felt stupid, and she should have. So then we go back to the observatory. It looks like someone has took a hammer to the fucking panel. And he looks at her and is like, Melinda, how did this happen? She's like, I don't know. Maybe the cleaning crew did it. And he's like, no. Chris has been using the same cleaning service for years. They've never had an issue. She's like, well, maybe Chris broke it. She's just coming up with all kind of shit. And he's like, no, they didn't. He said, well, I can't fix it, so I have to call somebody to do it. And she's like, no, you come back here right now and you fix it or I'm going to tell Chris. And he says, tell Chris what? That you came on to me in the wine cellar? She's like, that's not how I remember it. And he was like, no. She says then, we can get back what we had. Chris doesn't have to know. And he's like, no. He's like, let me explain this to you again. I do not fucking want you. Like, no. This is not happening. You're with Chris. I am with Rose. And that's it. But she's an awful person. Like, she is clearly an awful person. But you see, when people are like narcissists or if they just need so much fucking attention like that, like, she should have been good with the fact that she had a little rich boyfriend. Wasn't good enough for her. He left. So it's the day before the wedding. They have the rehearsal dinner. Rose, is still pissed at him. And she's being stupid. She's fucking annoying me. He tries to talk to her and they wind up being seated next to each other. And she was still being an asshole. She irked me this whole time because she was still what pisses me off with her is she knew she was being stupid and she kept doing it. That's what irked me so much with her. Oh my gosh. So then she winds up leaving, storming off. I'm like, whatever. So the day of the wedding, her mother calls her, asks her to come and pick her up. She's like, sure. Her mother was like, I just want to spend a little time with you and have a couple talk, have a little conversation. And Rose, of course, is like, oh gosh, she's finna scold me about some shit. But her mother was telling her that she's spoken to a realtor and she's thinking about moving to Cambria. And how much she really likes it. She's made a couple friends out there. And she was just like, huh? And she's like, don't worry. I know you have your own life, you know. So they get to the wedding. Jen's throwing up from nerves. They finally get her together. The wedding starts. Ryan looks nervous too. But once they saw each other, there was a calmness that came over both of them. Will and Rose look at each other. And they just look like, I don't know, it just, this moment kind of passed between them two as well, and it made Rose cry. After the wedding, at the reception, um she was trying to avoid him at first, but then she came up to him and was like, listen, I promised to be your fake date, so here I am. He's like, I don't want you to be my fake date, I want you to be my real date. tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that. And so then she freaked out, left, and she came back. They dance. While they're dancing, Chris comes up to interrupt, and he's like, can I cut in? Of course, Melinda's waiting to dance with Will. He ran off to the bathroom. When he came out, Melinda's waiting for him. She's like, well, now I get my dance. Daniel ass is somewhere with a pretty blonde. He forgot all about what he was supposed to be doing. He was in his own little world. So then Rose comes up and she's like, he doesn't want to dance with you. And she's like, well, that's not what he said the other night in the observatory. And Rose is like, you lying bitch. And then Melinda slapped Rose. And then out of nowhere, Pamela comes and slaps the shit out of Melinda. And was like, don't you ever put your hands on my daughter. And she was like, how dare you hit a pregnant woman? So Rose is like, oh my gosh, And then Melinda tried to lunge at Rose again, and Chris comes up and he's like, what is going on? Rose tells the truth about how the situation, how they had dated. And Rose was like, telling her she's a fucking liar and all this type of stuff. And then Will was like, I even have the text message to prove it. And Chris got pissed and was like, I think it's better you find another place to stay and another job. He told him, don't even come back to the property. I'll just have someone sing your stuff. And then he told Melinda, you can go back to the place, pack your stuff, and I'll have transportation take you back, take you to the airport. And she's like, you don't mean that, sweetie. He's like, oh, yes, I do. And he left. So then Pamela and Rose had a conversation, and we find out that Pamela wanted her to go to Yale because she wanted her to have options. Because when she went to Brown, her only job was to find a husband. So she wanted her daughter to have more. Which is fine, right? I get that. But this is where sometimes if you had communicated that might have not have been the life she wanted, but knowing that you wanted her to have a choice, you kind of got to also accept this is her choice. You're still trying to mold it into something that you feel she should have. So, I mean, at least she's not, I still think she's a mess, but she might be getting better, you know. We'll at least say that. And she does want to be around for the baby. She does want to help. Um, and at that point, Rose is happy that she's the one that's going to be, not that she's going to be, that she's going to move to Cambria. So the wedding went into the reception went until like 2 a.m. They dropped Pamela off. They went back to Rose's place. They had this beautiful lovemaking session. Next morning, they wake up. They have Pop Tarts. He's really like, you need to eat more balanced meals. And so then he gets a call from Chris, and Chris called to apologize and asked him to come back. But he was like, no, I've already made a plan. He's going to teach summer school at the college because he has a master's and he can do it there. And I think the community college, by the way, is where he's going to do it. And he's going to apply for the professor position at Cal Poly because the biology professor is retiring. He, of course, has turned in his dissertation. It's looking good that it's going to get accepted. And he feels like going back to that is a regression, and he's just about moving forward. And so he also found out family members get a huge reduction in tuition. And so he's like, I'm not rushing you anything, but when you're ready, and you want to go back to school, we can do it and it won't cost as much. And she was like super happy about that. Now he was initially going to move into Jen's old apartment because Ryan had told him he could. So when Chris was like, well, what's the address where I need to send your stuff? Rose took the phone and gave her address and let him know we're family. So you're already home. And that's how it ends. I thought that was so sweet. I will say this. How the Chris guy reacted, like I get it to an extent, but I do feel like Will should have just told him and then it wouldn't have been so juicy. But I do feel like he should have just told him so his friend kind of knew this is what's going on. I'm not keeping something from you. But I think the fact that Melinda had gone so long without telling him, he didn't want to rock the boat, especially if his friend really liked this woman and he knew he didn't want nothing to do with the bit. Um, I understood why he did it, but I don't think it was the right decision. I think he should have said it from the get go. But again, it wouldn't have been as juicy. But overall, I did like this book, even though Rose got on my fucking nerves. But I did think it was a cute read. What did you guys think of this book? Let me know. Drop down in the comment section below. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and that link's going to be available down in the description section as well. Make sure you like and subscribe. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.